Hey guys, I got a quick background on this. I screwed up one of my MP10 pumps. Had a leak I didn't know about. Well, I knew about the leak. You guys are familiar with what's going on, but I had not realized that the wet side of my MP10 had gotten wet. Unfortunately, that voids all the warranty, and so I'm left with fixing this myself. Ecotech did try to help out, but it was my fault for this thing breaking. So they did send me a free driver to try to troubleshoot some other problems I was having with it. The Wi-Fi wasn't working with the original unit, so that was nice of them. But hopefully this will help out and potentially save you from tossing out what may be a good driver, or I'm sorry, a good motor. What was going on with mine is the wet side was intermittently turning on as if it was getting power cut off from it every 1 or 2 seconds. And so I decided, since I voided the warranty and the only option is to buy a new one, I figured I'd take it apart because I haven't seen the QD wireless taken apart yet. So we'll kind of go through that. What you'll need is obviously the driver. You can get a micro screwdriver set. I got this one at Lowe's. It was like $8 or something like that. And a pick tool. So we'll start with the hard part first, and that'll be taking the motor apart. You'll start off by pulling off the sticker here. Just get your pick tool in there underneath and pry it off. Get it in there, and it's just a sticker. There's nothing holding it. You'll see it'll expose 3 screws for you. And to get these screws off, you'll get your precision screwdriver, press down, and as you turn, it'll be in there a little stiff, so give it a good initial turn. Alright, once done here, set your screws apart, and I believe that the older generation, this was essentially a clip-on spacer that you can pry apart and it'll come off. This one's a little different. What you'll have to do is use your fingers to start rolling back this piece of sticky rubber, and as it starts to come off, you'll start exposing the screws holding the motor unit inside the housing. Go ahead and place that facing up so that you don't pick up any other crud that's left on your table. And then just remove these 3 screws. As indicated here by my bit, it is magnetic, so keep that in mind. Ooh, save that. Once the screws are out, just start to pry this apart, and the cable in here is attached into the housing, and so what you'll have to do is just use your thumb and push that up, and the motor will come out and everything will be attached there. To get the cover out of the way, what you can do is slide this down, and it'll expose the motor. So for me, I didn't have to replace my bearing, but I know a lot of people will take these apart to replace a noisy bearing. I don't know how these stack up against the older gen Vortex, but I'll show you exactly what happened. You can see on this side you have 3 screws, again using the precision screwdriver. Apply a little force downward and start to take them out. These are longer screws that extend through the entire body of the motor. Once you have those out, you can remove this back plate here, and that'll expose the rotating assembly and the coiled motor in that inside. Alright, and these are the screws. You can see they're a little longer, or considerably longer than the previous 6 we're going to remove. Okay. And then remove this rear plate here. By wiggling it out. And that'll expose, again, the rotating assembly along with the coils inside. To get the motor out, simply just hold on to the housing and pull the motor apart. Okay, so what happened to me was this was mounted on a back glass. We had a little bit of water spill over the back of the aquarium and essentially leaked into the housing here, and this had collected a ton of water. Once I took it apart, realized there was water in it, I saw a ton of salt deposit, and so what I did is essentially filled up a small bowl filled with RO water and swished this around, let it sit for a couple of minutes while I took a soft bristled toothbrush and wiped or brushed as much as of the salt deposit as I could off of the actual rotating assembly. Let that dry, and we actually have a little dog dryer, like an industrial dog dryer. So we use that because it moves quite a bit of warm air, and so that actually blew all the water out. And you could obviously use an air compressor to do the same thing. And once that was done, I did the same thing with this. I took it out of the RO water and used a soft bristled brush to get in here and get these coils nice and clean. Dried them again. The same thing with the back panel here. And at this point, I really wasn't sure if this was going to work, but after putting it back together, the pump worked. So I hope this is kind of useful, maybe not to those who have soaked their pump like I have, but to at least get to the bearing, because I know these can get noisy over time. But just a simple way of getting in. To assemble this thing back together, simply work backwards. What helped me was actually getting this back plate on first. So you put the back plate on, and you'll see one side is slightly deeper than the other one. So put the back plate on, and you'll see these little alignment markings right here, just below my fingernail. So align your screw holes with those. And I forgot to mention one thing on mine. I don't know if they're all like that, but this date here that's printed up across the motor housing has to be opposite the cable, otherwise these 3 holes will not line up. I apologize, I forgot to mention that earlier. But or in an earlier edition of this video. And so again, line these up. And in a cross pattern, tighten these screws up. And we want to do this in a cross pattern as to not damage the bearing going into its housing that's sitting on the back of this plate here. Alright, once the backing is on snug, we can start to place the motor back into its housing. So the way we'll do that is obviously just drop the housing in, but you'll want to bring this cable, and on this cable you'll see these little tabs, and so they essentially just sit in behind the actual housing of the pump. So drop it in and pull the housing in behind, or pull the wire in behind the housing. Ensure that the holes on the rear are lining up. Take your 3 small screws, and this will attach the motor to the housing itself. Again, just start working in a cross pattern so everything lines up. There isn't much of these, so they should tighten up fairly quickly. Okay, that's set. Take your back sticker and place it back over. Move on to the front. Sit the screws in. Now this side is a magnetic bit, so it will start to pull your tools towards the center of it. It's kind of a pain. Just be careful with this to not scratch up the plastic. Also, don't over tighten this, as this is plastic and it will start to crack if you over tighten it, as I had found out the hard way. Alright, once we're done, again, take your backing, your spacer. This should still have some stickiness to it. Center it the best you can. Apply some pressure, and we are done disassembling and assembling our MP10. I'm assuming the MP40 and 60 work the same. But now to tackle the other problem, and that's to replace the faulty driver in here. So again, Ecotech had sent over a new working driver so that we can get the Wi-Fi working again. So first things first, we'll need to get our Phillips screwdriver, if I can get that up. So with a Phillips screwdriver, there are 3 screws in the back of the driver. Gonna remove those. And once you get all 3 screws out, simply start prying. If you've got fingernails, unlike me, you can just pry them open like that and it will come off fairly easily. So, to get the board out, same thing. You want to pop the cable out to loosen it up. It'll come out, and then the board should simply slide out after. No, this is key. After you take this knob out, board will come out. So, what's faulty on this one? This is the old driver. This board is faulty and does not give me Wi-Fi. I had tested this by swapping it out to a good working MP10, and the RF unit actually works. So what we'll be doing is essentially taking the old pump and the RF unit and putting it into a new driver unit. So press down, remove the cable on the clip. Press down on the clip, you'll see that here, that this will raise, and basically wiggle it out until it comes free. Same thing goes for the RF module. Grab onto it on both ends and then just rock back and forth until it comes loose. This is garbage as far as we're concerned. Here's the new driver. We'll open that up. Okay, same thing. Pry it open. Let's not forget the knob this time. This one is obviously a little stiffer as it's new. Here's a new good driver board. So what we'll do is we'll reattach the working, that's confirmed working RF module. So essentially line up the pins and drop it in its position and press down to lock it in. You'll see that this will overhang the board a little bit, and that's oriented in the correct position. Once we're done, we'll take the lead and from our motor and plug it back in. Press down till you hear a click. There's our click, and we are done. The rest of the assembly, take your housing. You'll see these pins here, 1, 2, 3, and they should line up with this hole, this hole, this hole, and this one. Once you line it up, it will go in snug. Take your cable and place it inside of the housing. Take the back panel, and you will see these little grooves cut in here, and that's to accommodate the power cable and the motor cable. Place it in, place your 3 screws, and tighten them back up. Again, not too tight. This plastic is pretty brittle and it will crack on you. But anyhow, I hope you found this helpful, as I wasn't able to find a video on how to take this thing apart. So, just paying it forward, and we are done. We'll go ahead and plug it in to test it out. And I have a continuously operating MP10 back. Before, these lights would go dark and this light would go red and come back into green or whatever mode it was set in, and it just wouldn't function. And as you can hear, continuous operation of the MP10. Again, I hope this was helpful for you guys, and I want to thank you and apologize for the quality of this video. Perhaps it's my first one, so please bear with me and don't make fun of me too much. Thanks again.